The conundrum of the U.S. Supreme Court Roe v. Wade decision, which in 1973 legalized abortion through 9 months, and this is how it was stated in actual language of Roe v. Wade. If the suggestion of personhood, and in context it's talking about the person of the unborn, is established, the appellant, and the appellant was making the pro-abortion case, of course collapses. For the fetus's right to life is then guaranteed specifically by the amendment, by the 14th Amendment. You see the point? In other words, if this is really a person, then we don't have any case at all to discuss. It's already been decided in the 14th Amendment to the Constitution. Therefore, the argument must be made persuasively. And apparently they thought it was persuasive because 5-4, they ruled, in favor of the, was that in favor of the plaintiff? No, the appellant. That'd be in favor of the appellant, I guess. Anyway, justices solved the problem by suggesting that personhood is different from being human, something developed at some point based upon some set of criteria such as viability, the ability to survive outside the womb. And pro-choice advocates have to center on subjective, artificial distinctions that say, okay, this isn't a person. Okay, so what happens when the preborn moves 18 inches or whatever it is out up the birth canal and comes out into the world? Even though no bigger, no older, other than a few minutes older, what has fundamentally changed? Location. They've gone from one place to another place. They're outside instead of inside. In any arena, do we ever think that a person, that an entity is not a person inside, but when they go outside, they become a person? No. In fact, if we see a homeless person on the street, we say they don't even have a place to live. We don't say, oh, well, they can't be a person because they don't have a place to live. Location is not the issue. It's never the issue with personhood, yet the pro-choice advocate must argue that personhood magically comes into existence after birth. Now, most of them will say immediately after birth. Peter Singer will say, well, let's just call it wait 3 months. But don't we all know we're playing games? I mean, he's an ethics he's a lot, philosophy, one of the segments and courses in philosophy is logic. So you really, as a philosophy professor, you ought to be logical. An ethics professor should be logical. So why 3 months? Why not 2 months after birth? Why not 4 months after birth? Why not 1 year after birth? Why not 3 years after birth? In fact, if you're talking about inconvenience, first of all, it's always dangerous whenever a man talks about anything related to childbirth, okay, but I am who I am, okay, so I have to, say that I think it's fair to say that pregnancy and that as inconvenient as pregnancy is, and of course I know it is inconvenient, you can make a much better case for a child really turning your world upside down after they're born than before they're born, in most cases. Do you hear what I'm saying? In other words, if you're talking about that you should have the right to take the life of a preborn child because that preborn child has invaded your life, even your physical body, and that all kinds of problems and inconveniences you can experience as the result of your pregnancy. I'm not minimizing those, but I'm just saying the child now born crying through the night is surely just as much and probably more of a hindrance to you living a convenient life than before, right? So if convenience is an issue, or even how the child makes you feel, how the child makes you feel after the child is born. Wow, and diapers to be changed and all the things that used to happen and they need to be fed, and all of that automatically, not automatically, but superintended by God, was happening inside the womb, miraculously. Now it's happening outside the womb, and that's way more inconvenient. So again, why not, and let's go back to the teenager example. Okay, or the 6-year-old, or the 10-year-old, or any age. Well, what about viability? Viability is when the child can live without the mother, live outside the mother. No longer does the child can live on his or her own, and that's called viability. But think about this one. How viable is a 6-month-old? Leave them to themselves. Are they viable? How long will they live? Until they starve to death, or the weather affects them, or something happens to them, or they're not viable. They can't make it on their own long term, right? On their own, they can make it for a few hours, but they're not truly viable. If viable means you don't need another person to take care of you. How about a 1-year-old, a 2-year-old? Is a 2-year-old viable, or do they need an adult to take care of them? Well, don't they? You see how incredibly subjective and even contradictory a lot of the reasoning is.